So we want to get down to drill deeper to what they were saying and regarding the power of your vote and how important it is. At the beginning, we had also from actually Rafton saying, you know, the power of your vote or one vote brought Hitler to power. So it is crucial how important your vote is. It can either break a nation or make a nation or disseminate a generation or a certain community or race, because there's power in your vote. Let's get now to discussing these issues that you've raised. Hitler came to power because, of course, the Nazi party won by just only one vote. But we saw how also Hitler came and made history, you know, infamously, so to speak, by decimating the Jewish population. People who now, they've listened to you this morning, they normally think, you know, it can't make any discernible difference. But you've persuaded them, right? And first of all, we want to know, when it comes to the voter apathy, and you've said the majority of Kenyans are youth, why do we have this apathy amongst the youth? Let's begin with Mbuvi, briefly.
Okay. Like I said, I think it's because it starts from the grassroots. Even our education system doesn't quite, we are probably not studying to become knowledgeable, so per se, but we are studying, majority, we are studying to pass exams. You get? So we study, like, I know I can do it. If I study a night before the exam, I will pass. 2 weeks later, I've forgotten what I've studied about. So there's a mind shift that needs to change. There's a mind shift that needs to change so people can stop doing that last minute. I also think some ideas we can try and see whether they can work. For example, maybe suggest to IEBC no anilipe kwa hii kama ataipenda. Like last year, we had about 577,000 candidates leaving KCSE. I'm assuming those are 18 and over.
Yes.
Let's assume they're not 18, maybe 500,000 of them. Now that year, maybe they will apply for IDs right after. Why can't they, when they're getting IDs, why can't they get cards, registration cards for voting on that particular year? That means that's about 500,000 people times 5 years. That's 2.5 million voters. At times people don't want to go to these queues. Why can't we start with that generation and make sure they all have registration cards? That ensures the youth in the next 5 years, majority of them are going to vote. Because sometimes we're thinking, no, I don't want to go to that long line. But now that the ID is necessary, mandatory, together with it, let these guys get a registration card, for a voter's card rather, sorry. Then that's 2.5 million votes. Kwisha, you have those young people voting without stress of queues, nitaenda kuchukulia wapi, woi staki, kuna laziness fulani tu. Utakuwa umemaliza hiyo. You have a card, you'll
Debarl, I have a different point of view.
Yes.
Let me just push back kidogo. I think we have two problems. One is what you're talking about, the voter registration.
Yes.
I think two, which I think is a bigger problem, is voter apathy, which is, even though I have the card, I don't feel inspired
enough
to go out and vote for several reasons. Maybe one, I don't see what difference it makes. Number two, you know, I think it's, I can't remember who said it, that, you know, it's a different forest, same monkeys, or something like that. You know, where so some kid there is like, I've been seeing this narrative, I've had my father talk about it, I've had my big bro talk about it, so why should I? Yeah, and when you're dealing now with these millennials, you know, for them it's the why is so important. So a guy is asking why. Yeah, I have a voter's card, but why should I go out and vote? What difference will it make? And I think if we're able to figure out that, then we're going to be answering it. And we can't assume, and I think that's a mistake sometimes we make, where we assume, because it's important, Avril thinks it's important.
Yeah.
I have to convince her that it's important. Yeah. There is a job we have to play to actually convince her that it's important. Yeah. It's not, you know, we're not born with the idea that voting is important. Exactly. We're not. It has to be learned. And if we're not taught it well, then, you know, so I think for me that might even be the bigger issue.
Maybe just to add on to what he said, and I think also parents have a role to play, because I remember having discussions with my parents when I just turned 18 about voting, and we'd have conversations about who we're going to vote for or this and that, and we actually had discussions in the house about politics. So it all boils down again to information not just from the public coming in, but conversations that, like, me and you have a conversation, and I see the importance. So it is the responsibility of our generation and generations that have preceded before us to actually bring down the conversation to young people. Let it not just be, headlines. Let's not just talk about this person, ametukana huyu, amesema huyu, amefanya msema hii, but actually have genuine conversations with young people to understand what we are doing with all this. I loved when I was growing up, we used to watch, I don't know why it's decreased, but each and every single time we had Independence Day or we had all these things, before the processions and the Nyayo Stadium shangwes and celebrations, we would have a whole history about the Nkemathi. You'd have all these stories about Mau Mau, and it was something that I learned in school as well.
Yes.
Yeah. I feel like there's been the disconnect that we're talking about is because we are not talking to our young people. Right now, they have so much more information about Romain Vago and Romain Vago is a yes. About Sinach, okay, about Sinach. They have all these conversations. You know the history. You know how she woke up because she's on Instagram and all these things. But I feel the disconnect is we are not being as historical as we were when we were growing up. We're not having that conversation. We're not talking to our children about the importance of some of these things. It needs to start from the household.
Right, but looking also at the rush of tweets sometimes that we see people saying, why should I vote? Because first of all, I don't believe the credibility of the voter registration exercise itself, right? We don't believe also in the integrity of the infrastructure, when we're talking about the election materials as well. Al-Shabaab, they just, stormed into a police station and went away with the BVR kits. One is found in Isili as well. So you as a voter, when you look at that, you're like, oh, someone is really gaming the system. What will my vote really do? Do you think in terms of handling this particular infrastructure and the whole exercise itself, the institutions actually, they've acted in the wisest of fashion?
For me, hey, that's a tough one, but maybe let me try answer it. I'll go back to my first point. I think the issue lies on the opinion shapers. By that I mean, as I said earlier, first, honestly, I'll start by blaming the politicians, because when they keep on engaging in these vices of corruption and, segregation, as I said, the opinion shapers get to influence the generation that comes after them. For instance, as I said, if my parents kept on complaining about the government and the policies and the politician, I'm telling you, I will definitely inherit that school of thought. And now that I'm a husband and I have my children, I will, simply just transfer that school of thought. So what am I saying here? In the earlier days, it was a little bit difficult to influence the generation, but Debarl, I can assure you, there was a modern coast that ilichomeka somewhere along Voi. Before the fire was out, it was all over the internet. That is how fast the info, unaonyeshwa venye imeshika moto, imechoma Kiombili, the whole bus is on fire, and then now the firefighters came and quenched the fire. That is how fast the info goes around. So I think even the politicians and everyone involved in the elections in this country, they should understand that the youth of this country, they're called the microwave generation. They want to hear your promises. They want to see you keeping your promise, and they want to feel the change. These are not the youth you'll tell them, there's a bright future for you, Avril. Your future is bright. And then you're there for 15 years. They'll be like, you came in 2 years ago. What has happened? What has happened to Jogo Road? Yeah. What has happened to, I used to queue going to the clinics when I had my first baby. How long did it take me before the doctor could administer to my child? That is the kind of generation that we have. And then maybe the last thing I would also try to say, going back to his question, is the IEBC and all the bodies involved in the voter mobilization. As I said, they need to know this is a different generation. They have to be creative and very hands-on. For instance, I would say this. When I was pursuing geography and history in school, honestly, it was a very boring subject due to lack of a better word. The textbooks were green and black, and But when I watched the History Channel and the National Geographic, it's like a movie. You're like, wow, you understand? But if they would have come with very black and white images about a lion looking like a cat, I will not engage myself. So as you have said and Kanjii has said, the IEBC needs to step up to the new generation of audiences, like what you said. For me, I'm like, why can't we have one card Like maybe in the US or some
Or
other,
apply
for all. When you get this card, it has your driver's license, it has your ID, and then it also has your voters, registration. One card. This is it's a new generation. Because I'm a gentleman, we also have another wise lady over here. Now we give her.
Yeah, well, when you talk about youth in this country, I see a generation that is hopeless, a generation that is frustrated. They lack mentors, and there's a gap, And so to me, I would say the policymakers or people in government, when you talk of voter registration, and this has been known in history. I mean, if you have the right to vote, and you feel that whatever you're voting for has never changed, in your life, has never changed your life.
Yes.
So what's the point of you voting? So there's that other side, like you said, the voter apathy, which I think it's critical in this election process. Many a times we don't have to see people being pushed, like I said earlier, to being pushed to practice their democratic right. And so that gap, we need to see how can we fill. I don't have to be paid to go and spread the word of, hey, kujeni mregister, I mean, we should own the process. How do we let even the same youth realize that that is their power, and how do we let the youth and the now generation, I would always say, because there's nothing like the youth are the future of tomorrow, I think the now makes the future. Whatever we do now will perfect the future. And so this is something that is critical, and we need to look at it. Yeah.
Right. You mentioned, of course, political parties approaching you, and most of you will be approached, I know, as our Sanese as well. Some of them, we can see their leanings. They've been to State House, they were holding court to the president. And even we wonder what was really... So they don't need to actually tell us. Yeah, so when it comes to you, and of course, people, they look up to you, especially the millennials, the young guys, they're looking up to you as mentors as well. And whatever your opinion will be, and your leaning will be, also will drastically, change the opinion of these young men and women as well. So how responsible then are we? Of course, she says, of course, if you didn't have this particular memorandum with the United Nations, would you have taken, aside when it comes to political leanings as well, as an artist?
Well, that is a personal decision.
It's a personal decision.
It is a personal decision. And just like everyone, every Kenyan citizen, voting is my secret. I wouldn't want to say, fine, but there's also work. People should look at it as it's work, I should not scrutinize Rafton, for example, if I see him leaning on one side or affiliated with a particular party.
Yes.
I should not, because I don't know. That is his choice, and I should respect that. And I wish Kenyans should also follow suit, because at times we are put in a very difficult position. You're like, okay, Suzanna, which party are you supporting this time round, And of course, my name starts with an O. Even before I vote. So everybody's like, okay, we know where you're leaning,
of course, yeah.
You see, so it's always very, very... very critical.
Your fan base, of course, even maybe you might make or lose some fans as well. Yeah, regarding where you're leaning, especially this year, because I think as far as we thought we were breaking away from tribalism, we can see it's so much entrenched, especially with the young guys. If you go to the universities right now, people, sometimes they have lecture halls which are being addressed in, the mother tongue within that particular, with the devolution that we have. And they normally say, oh, certain communities that are here, we don't really care. We'll translate, what they're saying afterwards. So, do you think in any way your fan base will be affected? We know you're leaning, of course, when we talk about Rafton, we've seen, of course, you draped in red in some youth party of some particular political class. You don't think that can adversely affect your fan base as well as a musician moving forward?
Is that for me?
Who else?
You are drifting red.
Okay. Then Avril is in red. So what does that say about a political inclination? So anyway, for me, I'll be very honest. This guy who's whatever you see is whatever you get. Me, I'm a very transparent person. If I'm born again, I say I'm born again and Jesus is my personal savior. If I like Kanjii, I would say I respect him and he's my friend. The same way to my political, should I say, affiliation. If I believe in someone, I'll come out very openly and I will give reasons as to why. Does that make, now that this guy is for a wiper, does that make him my enemy? No, that is why there's the word democracy. Democracy, it means we have different opinion, but we still coexist because of the respect of human rights and your constitutional right. So about my fan base, yes, I know some. I get very direct messages from my fan base saying, hey, Raf, why are you there? Why are you not here? And I'm like, I have reasons as to why I believe in so and so. And I would also encourage you to honestly reflect and ask God to guide you to where you will vote. And whichever you'll vote for, hata kama ni maembe, ama ni miti, I will respect that. So that is my stand as far as I'm concerned.
Louis Lamu, you mentioned him. To make democracy, we must be a nation of participants and not observers. Looking generally at Kenya, where do we lie? Are we participative? Are we also observers?
I think we're a little bit of both, huh? Okay, when you talk about, say, the middle class, then I think we have a very huge we observe, eh?
We observe,
and we have the Twitter activists and all manner of very safe engagement, eh? And I mean, and it's something definitely that needs to be looked at, because that apathy from the middle class actually it adds up, eh? It adds up, and I think hurts us rather than helps us. So and I think so. Generally, when you talk about the leaning, I think it's more from an observed point of view. Many people don't know how to engage. So do I engage on Facebook? Do I join Boniface and everyone and go out and line up and protest? How do I engage? And I think there are so many different ways of engaging, but it all boils down to what amount of information do I get that helps me make a good decision. When even with the question that you've just thrown at Rafton, again, it's about information to make a good decision. You could look at it from one point of view where you say, kind of like Rafton, this is what I believe in. I want to be very clear about it. But then you could also look at it and say, if say things go haywire, like they did in 2007, then at that point you lose your moral, you lose moral credibility if before you are openly doing something, which is why I think the UN gets you to sign that, because it's like, if say something goes down, you need people who are seen to be neutral to be able to speak to the national space. So, but it's all decisions, and you have to get the best information possible to make the best, decision that you could make. And I think it's the same thing now with the whole idea of whether we're participants or observers. We need information to enable us to act. And I feel that the media plays a role, the church plays a role, every sector of society plays a role in making sure that everyone has good information to make the best decisions possible.
All right. Yeah. You can chime in, or you say and you're quoting John Maxwell as well. Yeah. Everything rises and falls on leadership.
Yeah.
And if we may maybe just critique also the current regime and leadership in this country with ongoing doctor strike that has been ongoing, for many days right now. What will be your reaction, especially when you're showing leadership and people are expecting maybe the executive to come forth and show leadership? Have they really shown good leadership, I should say? Any of you can chime in. You don't have to go sequentially.
I feel as artists, we should stop being scared of talking about things, because most of the time, yes, our fan bases are very diverse, and you'll have fans who are on this school of thought, others are on this other school of thought, others are supporting this party, not supporting this party. But we have again, I go back to responsibility. When we talk, then we give people a chance to, or rather we give this nation a chance to be more mature about approaching things. Mm-hmm. I feel like we have come of age as Kenyans to be mature enough to speak and say what we need to say, but not necessarily having it lead to other things. If I feel like actually this is more to Rafton's point, if I feel like I would love to support the red party or support this orange party or support that party or this party, it shouldn't start at TWIF. It shouldn't mean that I'm going to be bullied on social media just because of this point that I raised or this point that I raised. I remember some time back I brought up a point when there were students who wanted their playground back and then the wall. So I personally was like, you know what, I feel like this is an adult conversation. Why are we putting children at the crossfires to a point that wall would have fallen on one of the children? If I'm a parent, I'm taking my child to school and expecting that I'm not going to go and find them in hospital because of a certain situation. I should be able to feel free to express that point and not afraid that I'm going to be trolled. I'm going to have people saying this and that, and then I'm going to have blogs saying this and this and this and that. And I feel like that maturity needs to come from us as artists who have the most diverse of people following us or people listening to us.
True.
And we also need to have maturity that boils down also to the common mwananchi. Let's have a voice. Let's talk. But let it not be that if I talk, if I say this, then I'm going to be stoned, I'm going to be killed, I'm going to this and that, this and that. And it all goes down again to the doctors' strike. The doctors have a situation. Why is it that we have sat back and go like, hey, in this situation, daktari, CCC, let them have that conversation? No, it all comes down to if there's an issue, let's talk about it. I feel like this particular executive has been very, again, it's like they're on that point of us being scared as artists, because they feel like if they say something in a certain way, then they're going to be thought to be leaning towards this side or that side. But we need to have our leaders speak. I mean, I have been waiting for the longest time. I'm sorry to say this, but I've been waiting for the longest time for some of our leaders, of our, top leaders, talking about what's going on in our country. Don't just say the ministry of this and this and this should look at this situation and find resolve. What about you? We are looking at you to speak, Yeah, so I feel like we need to evolve as a society to bring maturity.
Maybe we can extrapolate also what was really happening in the US, where we had Donald Trump, with the rallies, and then, of course, they'd picked a Rolling Stone song, and they were really worked up by that, because they were saying, we don't really identify with your manifestos, we don't really identify with your ideology, and the off-the-mark remarks that were really ruffling feathers as well. So if any of you, we have parties which are picking up your songs as well, and you don't really identify with your manifestos, ideologies, so to speak, as the way the Rolling Stones were saying, no, we don't want you to actually play our songs during your rallies. So how will you react to that? Do they really approach you, or they just pick your songs randomly?
I think they are caught. I don't know. At times I think they just have a DJ.
They have a DJ who just plays
music.
And you're happy. You're happy because you say, airtime for me.
Sometimes
I have time.
You can argue it that way, but you can also argue it like now for the music that we sing. Like when I sing gospel, the music I sing is spirit and is life. So my agenda
Doesn't
also.
matter where it's played.
Sorry, yeah, it doesn't matter where it's played.
Yeah,
for me, it's gonna touch people's lives. It's gonna change their lives. It's gonna transform. When I sing, it's music that, I don't know, there's a pressure. My mantras, when you understand what your mantras are, then it also changes your conclusion. My mantras are joy and encouragement. There's somebody in that rally who's stressed. There's something that lifts.
Yes.
So for me, there's no divide. Whoever wants to sing, play the music, they can play. Then it serves another purpose, a greater purpose than even that election itself.
Maybe if I may just throw in a point. When you look at the whole idea of how art engages, in that political space, I think for me there's a bigger thing. Obviously, politics is extremely divisive, and you know the American election. You know they're the oldest democracy in the world, and you know they are as divided as they have ever been. You know, so it shows that even 200 plus years later, they'll still be drama.
Still there, yeah.
So that's a given. You know, if we have that as an example, we're like, okay, that's still in our future. So
still in our future.
It's in our future. By the way,
150 years to come.
Yeah, we're about 150 years off.
Oh
Yeah?
my God.
But when you look at it, then when you say, so how does artists, filmmakers, musicians, how do we engage in this space? And I think it's got to be from a value point of view, as Rafton was saying earlier. So, what do you believe in? And those things then are not necessarily embodied within a party or within a person. I loved a story I read about a girl in the US who was just graduated from high school, and she was so excited to go and get her voter's card. Why? She wanted to vote for Hillary Clinton, but it wasn't even about the fact that Hillary's policies or whatever. She said it's about the fact that it's a woman who is running for the highest office in the world, and that was her motivator. And so whether you agreed or not with policies and all of that, there was a universal truth about that. Same thing happened with Obama, by the way. Whether like him or hate him, it represented something for people of color.
Black and I'm proud.
By the way, and if you are Republican, you're like, anyway, but I'm black. I'm like, this is something here, And I think for me, we ask guys as musicians, as people of art, people who reach out to a wide demographic, we've got to find what rises above this noise of politics, of partisanship, and all of that, and what are the values? What are the values that I'm basically saying I believe in? And so if I'm seen to be leaning this way, it's from a value point of view.
Exactly.
So it can't just be because this guy is the one who's paying me more. And that's something where we have to soul search for ourselves, I think, and be like, okay, if I'm putting myself out there, why?
It's a conviction.
Why?
Good
And
question.
I also think, I like what you said. You said we've come of age, but we still have a few issues here and there that we can sort. And now that we have some artists coming out and saying, I'm on this divide, and another one comes and says they're on the other divide. And I think we are of a mature mind that we know it's about, I don't know, the serras and what the opponent. Because now the political leadership is not coming to show we are together in as much as we have different policies. Can we probably, I don't know how we can work it out.
Show an example of it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can we come, there's a guy affiliated to this side, you come and say, hey, here I am whoever,
Like you from
and I am, yes, say I'm from whatever, and somebody else is from wherever, and hey, we are together, we are a nation together. I'm on this divide, but I'm also on this other divide, but we are together.
We are together.
It's not about fighting, it's not about tribalism, it has nothing to do with that. It's about performance, it's about easy seras hour, they appeal to me. Whereas the Mazakes may appeal. Then the one who comes, who wins on the day, congratulate, and we say we still work together as a nation.
Thank you.
So maybe that message should come from.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, just a quick one. There's you raised an issue of the Rolling Stones not wanting their music to be played.
Yes.
At the political rallies.
Yes.
Whereas you find here we don't have control as musicians, and I think that is something we need to look at as musicians. Fine, I might not show my face, but the DJ has why does the DJ has the right to play my song? If I don't want my song to be played in a political rally, you can say I don't want my song to be played. We have not reached that level. We can't compare ourselves with the US, the United States people.
But we should start early, don't you think? We don't have to wait for 200 years to get there.
Yeah.
You're very right.
That's true.
Yeah.
Revolution is a process.
Yeah. It's a process.
It's a process. We can't say that everything is going to work out in this particular election. Yes. They're going to have it's going to have its own issues. But if we take an issue and sort it now, then we have another issue sorted in the next, like that. Mdogo, 200 years from now.
Thank you.
No. Party. Unakwambia nikale ka DJ. Na DJ ni hustler pia anang'ang'ana. He's
Okay. We have a few minutes now to wind up, but just looking at the front page of a Daily Nation today, and also looking at the front page of a Standard, what would be your comments? If you may just pick up the front page of a Daily Nation and show our viewers as well, that yes, there's a bold plan to spy on all calls text rolled out. Yeah, so it means not any your privacy has been or it will be invaded in a way, because now your phones will be bugged. People will be listening into your calls. They'll be looking at your M-Pesa transactions as well. And remember, we had a bill, I think 5 years back, that was really being pushed to have this particular headline, like we see it today, also on the front pages of our dailies, that there should be a phone bugging. They should listen to your conversation as well. As artists, what do you think about this reaction? Very briefly, let's say 30 seconds, because we have to play your music. I think Avril and also Kanjii will play the others. Yes.
This is a monster in the making.
It's a monster in the making.
I'm telling you, because I also followed such a story in America where we had very executive public personalities. And I'm seeing the Kenyans already were seeing opportunities of blackmailing.
Oh, yes.
You know, I don't know what normally happens in Kenya, but you'll find there's someone I'm seeing here, there's a place, there's a computer, like it gives location and types of handsets being used. Mm-hmm. There's a place where it's written, these are the calls recorded made by customers. Somewhere in between these computers, someone will come in and they'll be leaking these things, mm-hmm. and they'll be calling Kanjii. Jana ulikuwa unasema nini? Unless you give me 1 billion. I'm telling you, this one, I'll take it all over the place. And it will affect many people. It has happened in America. So for me, as far as I'm concerned, this is an infringement in, say, people's privacy.
Thank you.
And should be stopped immediately.
All right, Kanjii, briefly, 30 seconds.
You know, I've learned not to read the headline, because I always feel that there's moves and counter moves. So I don't want to comment on this, because it's already telling me what I should think about it. I'd like to research a bit more and actually know exactly what they're saying. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Avril, 30 seconds.
Yes. Again, what is the reason? Why is this? Why is this happening? Why is it something that's going to only target a couple of people? Is it going to be a whole thing? Just like Kanjii said, I think more information needs to be given to the public to know exactly why this is happening. I mean, we're in a state or in a nation of Al-Shabaab and Al-Qaeda and ISIS and all these things. Yes. I feel like to some extent it could help to solve a few issues, but then again, on an overall, knowing Kenyans being Kenyans, utaanza kupigwa simu, yes, 1 million, 1 billion and such. So it's like a half and half, good and bad.
Thank you. All right, let's listen from Suzanna.
Well,
briefly.
My take is why now?
Why now?
You know?
we leave it at that.
Why now?
Why now?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm afraid. But how do we know it's not already happened?
Exactly.
You know? It's probably already underway.
So it's just coming into
the
public.
Now officially officialize the officialness of the official.
You need to watch the Snowden movie, by the way. It's already happening.
Nilipigwa na mtu niko Lang'ata na niambia, hey, unafanya nini Lang'ata?
Thank you. We need to wind up right now.
One point before I leave.
30 seconds.
30 seconds. There is the issue of voting and alcoholism. The reason I'm saying this is because I'm also an ambassador for Kenya Liquor Board, where I'm fighting against the ills of alcoholism. And I've seen this in my village, whereby a night or a week before the election, a politician comes and young people are being given 50 shillings, and on the day of election, wote wako kwa mitaro. So I will tell you, vote peacefully, but at the same time, watch out, usilewe.
Sobriety is being called for also during the electioneering time as well.